everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are.
Good day. Good
day.
Good day, mate.
All right, so welcome to our session. This is like the fourth one that we've done. If you really want to, you can go and watch all of the recordings. But we're getting quite a few of the same questions, aren't we, Amey?
Yeah, there's some repeating themes. It's always each session seems to have a specialized topic.
Yeah.
So it's been quite fun. But let's see what's going on today. Do you want me to do this? Do you want me to do it?
It's entirely up to you.
I can do the intro. Okay. The session's going to be recorded, so if you're not meant to be here or you don't want people to know you're here, then you might have to leave. I'm sorry. Your attendance is not anonymous. Ask questions in the Q&A. Feel free to have chat in the general chat. I do occasionally pop in there, but I'm not great at multitasking. So generally questions are in Q&A. If you want to chat and ask other people general vibes on stuff, feel free. You do you. Be nice. No one be an asshole. Put your question in the chat, and then we'll invite you to come off mute and ask your question.
No, don't put your questions in the chat.
In the Q&A.
Q&A.
In the Q&A, the other chat, non-chat. Q&A. Questions in Q&A. We'll invite you to come off mute and ask your question. Examples are fine. Be specific. Give us context, but don't share anything sensitive. Keep questions on the topic of customer insights journeys, please. I still don't know enough about customer insights data to pretend I know what I'm doing. We'll try and answer as many questions as possible. If you see a question in the Q&A or the conversation that you want to add to, go ahead. And me and Megan do not accept any liability for how you act upon the advice we give you. We're doing this as community give back. We're not being your official consultant or partner. So whatever we do advise you, we do it with best interest, but also make sure you get reassurance and guidance with more detail to your specific scenario. So we don't get fired from our own companies.
Well said. Well done.
Cool. Housekeeping done.
Excellent. All right. So thank you, everyone. So as Amey said, we are going through the Q&A side. Just being respectful of others, depending on how many people end up, we don't want one person just to have all of the questions and then we don't get to stuff. So if you've asked a couple, that's fine, but we may come back to your second or third or fourth question, depending on how many you might have asked. Yeah. All right, so Ferdinand, we'll go with you first. You can decide which of those two questions you want to ask. So maybe ask the second one and maybe you can have chat on your first one in the chat area. Ferdinand?
Are you there?
Are you there?
Yes, now I'm unmuted, sorry.
Yay, well done, well done.
Please skip the first one and only take the second one regarding the trigger-based journeys.
Sure, go ahead.
Go for it.
Okay, I'm faced, you see, I try to do it one big journey with multiple triggers just to get the event story in one journey. But I failed, and one of my mistakes was that I have to take care that all the emails have to be in relationship to the first trigger if you are using personalization fields. And my question is, it's a bit confusing to bring this to our users. Is there a way to get a little bit independent from the first trigger to have those emails more flexible? Or is it by design like that?
What scenario, like especially for events, why would you want to use different triggers?
You see,
well, I agree. I would like what Ferdinand is looking for, because I've done that before where I've come up with a custom trigger and I wanted to do something and wait for that to fire and then use information from that. So I agree 100%. It would be nice. It is by design currently that you basically have the first trigger that starts the journey and then your email content must all be tied to data from that. Now, if you're clever with your trigger, or even if you're using the out-of-the-box event registration is created, for example, you can get information from all kinds of other things that are related to it. It can be confusing for users at first, but essentially it's like everything must stem from that if it's all in the same journey. So I agree, it would be nice, but it doesn't do that currently.
Oh, so this, okay. So I was hooked on the events thing because I don't get it in the context of events, but I get it in scenarios other than that. So this is because when you fire a trigger in a journey, You fire it and you walk away. You don't wait and get anything back, right? So it works asynchronous rather than synchronous. And it doesn't give you anything back. I fully agree with this. This would kill off. This is usually where I end up splitting out and having multiple journeys. So then you can get the context. So you fire the trigger in the first journey, which then starts the second journey. Fully agree. I would love to use the context of the second trigger.
Exactly.
I completely get it now. Yes, I think that's something I've brought up a few times, and it didn't land very well in terms of understanding every time I brought it up. And I think
did you explain it right?
Maybe not. And I don't know if it's architecturally possible. I think we might have painted ourselves into a corner in terms of how journeys work. Ferdinand, if you have a look on the ideas thing and don't find anything, post it, send it to me, and I would happily chew on that one until I hit my deathbed.
Okay, I will describe my ideas, and then I say I have to do now 5 journeys, I guess, only to handle this event registration and waitlisted and register from waitlisted and cancel and whatever stuff. I have to do it in 4 or 5 journeys to use each and any trigger with each and any dedicated email. But my wish would be to have this in one orchestrated. And well, okay.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I've come across that many times and thought, if I could just get that information from that trigger that has just been fired and I'm waiting for it in my journey, it would be fantastic. So no, I agree. Like Amey said, if you don't find it on the ideas forum, share the link. Feel free to share it on LinkedIn and tag us, and we can make sure that other people upvote it as well. Because the more votes, and obviously if we could push it.
Thank you for that.
Fingers crossed. 100% agree.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. So first name to butcher, Kaja.
Okay, I've enabled your mic. You can tell us how badly we ring your name.
It's Kaya.
Kaya, of course. The silent J.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No problem. So my question concerns outbound forums, because we have been publishing a lot of events, like outbound events, and are now trying to do the move towards real time, obviously. But what happens with all the forms that are already published after the 30s? Is there going to be a support for them technically? I know that you cannot set them up anymore, but are they just going to not work anymore?
You are correct.
They stop working.
Really?
Yes, really. Yes. So there isn't anything where we can say, oh, maybe Microsoft are not telling the truth. We have to go with the assumption that the date that is currently being publicized is the date that they will stop. And I think, Amey, you might know for sure, but I think there's something in documentation somewhere that says these are some of the things that will happen, or basically these are some of the things that will no longer work. I'm pretty sure there's something specifically about forms and events around that.
Anything that's using the marketing services, so the thing that makes the form appear, it's gone. So I think the form will just not render. So you get that error loading form, it's like game over. And there's nothing you can do to turn it back on. So yeah, definitely not. The only way you can carry on using outbound events with slight risk is if you're using a custom API to fire in the registrations. So the event is of type outbound marketing, but you're not using the out-of-the-box forms or portals to get the registrations in. And even then, it's a bit borderline risky.
Yeah, see.
Here you go, Kaya. This is the specific section on the documentation that is the real-time journeys transition FAQs, and that is the question that says, what happens to outbound tables and data when outbound marketing is removed? And it walks through different things in terms of if something will be removed or if it will just stop working. Or so that entire page, if you haven't already read through, I would suggest going and looking through that.
All right, I will do so. Thank you.
You're welcome. No problem. Yes. Okay. It's not our fault.
No,
Caroline.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you. I have a question about the templates.
currently we're using templates for outbound events to set up them because we have many event managers, so around 20. So it's just easier for them to set up, for example, online webinars. And at the moment, there are no templates for real-time marketing events. So I cannot prepare the templates. Do you know if they will be available or what? Yeah. What's next?
In the fullness of time. You're the first person I've heard that uses them. That's really interesting.
Okay.
It's going to be one of those in the fullness of time, right? We only just got like journey templates. I think the events team are pretty busy scrambling with other things. I think it will come. I doubt it will be before 30 June.
Okay.
Templates tend to be the nice to have rather than the essential functionality. I don't have an ETA, but I know it will come, but I would put money on it not being before 30 June.
Okay, but that sounds good. Thank you very much.
So the only thing, Caroline, at the moment is that you would essentially create an event that you're never going to use, never going to publish, put everything that you would put into your template, and then you can use that and do a save as from the top of your event. So for now, until we get templates, that's really your only option. So at least you're not having to then fill everything out again.
Okay, that's a good idea. Thank you very much.
No problem. You're welcome. Jan?
Jan, I've enabled your mic.
Yes, thank you. Hi. Yeah, I have a question concerning the analytics and the insights, especially because from what I could tell, they are still available somehow, but I'm sure they won't be transferred directly, for instance, from emails to the real-time emails. Or how can I still access old analytics insights from clicks, journeys, whatever?
Well, the emails are going to be different emails. So that's the first thing, is that any of your analytics that you can see on an email, there's nowhere to transfer them to, because even if you are importing from outbound to real time, you're not actually importing, you're creating a new version of it. So it's not like the old outbound email goes anywhere. So your analytics will still very much be on the outbound. And I think in that link that I shared, that says, if I'm not mistaken, that the information will still be there. It's just that obviously anything new, you won't be able to be sending out the emails. So therefore, anything new will be on your real-time emails. In terms of reporting, and Amey, I don't know if you've got anyone that's gone down the path of blob storage for outbound and then using Fabric for real time, but if you've got any reports that you've created, the data is in completely different places, so you'd have to do something quite fancy and way more than my level of knowledge of Power BI to join the analytics together.
Okay, but generally speaking, I can still access them somehow. So that's the most important point, because that was my expectation. So even if I export or transfer them to real time, that those will be separate. But yeah, as I could see in the documentation, that you can still go back in the table. So of course, outbound won't be available, but I can go to the table of the email and still access the insight and see what happened in the history.
Exactly that. Yeah. You keep all your data. It just stops creating new stuff.
Yeah, but that's fine. That's perfect. So that's all I need for the customer.
It's fine. Yeah, you're very accepting of it. I'd be like, that's rubbish. But it's better than having nothing.
I know. Maybe it's because I'm not working with it all the time. So from a service perspective, so I have to deal with more customers than just one.
Yeah. Well, then that's totally fine. Then that's easy.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. No problem. Mirali. Done.
Hello, and thanks for the session. Actually, I think I got my answer already. Because cool. the situation is like, now we would like to run some events, but the out of the box check-in via the Power Apps application is a bit hard and brings more clicks. And that was my question, how we can like smooth it a little bit. But I need to go through the article. Maybe I will find the answer actually.
So the article there is so it should give you what you need in terms of just creating a very quick check-in app that is not, because the out of the box is essentially you have to log into the marketing app or customer insights journeys and then navigate to the event registration and then add a check-in, and it is a real pain in the backside. So that article that I wrote is about session check-ins, so just keep that in mind. It should give you a good starting point, but if you're looking for event registration check-ins, just keep in mind mine is specifically for sessions, but it's the same concept. Your patch statements would just be a little bit modified because you're trying to create a check-in for a registration versus a check-in for a session, if that makes sense.
Yeah, very true. I got it.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
But once you've got that, and if you put it in as little as possible and don't try to get all fancy, it should work really, really fast.
I see.
Okay,
thanks.
You're very welcome. Not a problem. Brian.
Edwards, your mic is enabled. You have to unmute yourself though. Sorry, I can't do that.
Oh, sorry about that.
There we go.
You made it. Hi, Brian.
Good afternoon. I do have a quick question regarding transitioning some outbound forms over to real-time journeys forms. We have several forms that are all their inbound lead forms, and we have numerous their lookup fields within outbound. So they're not a traditional HTML select field. When it gets rendered in HTML, it's all rendered as like div tags with bullets underneath them, etc. Microsoft seems to have removed the functionality to do lookup filtering based on a prior dropdown. So state and country, you can no longer have state be dependent or filtered upon country. And for our use case, it's also product group and product family. We have, 200 or so products. We don't expect our customers to wield through a huge list of products to route to a sales rep. So we use dependent lookup fields, and that's removed from Realtime.
Well, it's
Has
not
anybody
removed.
come up
They
with
just
a
didn't build it
workaround
yet.
to do this?
It's not been removed. They just didn't build it yet.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't have
It's
an
not been added.
ETA on building it yet either.
Yeah. So I haven't done anything on dependent lookups. I don't know. Pauline Caldy's got a lovely JavaScript library blog post where she's put together all kinds of different scripts that she's used. Amey, have you done anything on?
I haven't yet. I did stumble across something the other day. I think it was actually the code of, they said how to write JavaScript code to do dependent lookups for outbound. But I imagine if I can dig that out for you, you can probably adjust it to work for real time. But I haven't done it myself. I'm not going to lie. Someone did ask me the other day. It's something I'm kind of holding out hope that it will come along in the fullness of time, quote unquote. Because I think I've heard enough noise about it that I think it was important. Like all the scenarios you said were pretty relevant. So I'm wondering, have you looked at the JavaScript code for outbound and had a look at that at all?
Yes, most JavaScript code has to deal with traditional select fields, not these lookup style fields with div tags and ULs and LIs underneath them. They use, the DOM selectors for a traditional select field. So maybe a follow-up to that is, has anybody experienced, using any sort of external, HTML select fields and have them map into a lookup field, or is that possible?
Oh, hang on.
You'd have to transform it yourself, right?
Yeah.
I think that I did. I can't. What's it called? The capture stuff. Hang on. Pretty sure I did a post on form capture with real-time marketing forms, and I believe that I went through and tested different field types for form captures. in the interest of time, I'm just going to put the link in, Brian, and you can have a look at this one.
Yeah, no, that would be wonderful, because that's what we're going to ultimately do, is create our own forms with the controls and then just post them to the form capture. So
there you go. So have a look at that one as well. Like I said, I wrote it a while back, can't remember, but I thought that in my due diligence, I went through every different type of field to see if it was possible to map it. So have a look at that. It might be in there. But yes, and if anyone else has done it, go ahead, find Brian's question or put it in the chat and tag Brian and let him know that you have done it. So hopefully that gives you a few starting points.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, not a problem. Priya?
Sorry, I'm very unorganized. I fell into a Google rabbit hole trying to find the thing that I found a while ago. I'm on my way. Stand by. Just need to remember the alphabet. Allow microphone. Okay, Priya, question.
Hi. Big fan, Megan and Amy.
Oh, thank you.
I have a couple of questions, but I'll ask the one that's more
Pick
relevant
one,
to the
and we'll
topic.
likely be able to come back to you.
Okay, so my question is around the outbound segments. Like, we've been using a lot of outbound segments, especially with the exclusions, like the static segments, where we are using the same kind of segments in the real-time journey. Do you think those segments will still be there available for us to use in the real-time journeys the way we are using right now, post June 30th, or do we have to find the alternatives?
Segments in outbound will stop working after 30th June. They'll still be there, but they won't work. So you do need to transition them to be real-time segments.
Okay, so is there a way like for static segments to be created in real-time journeys?
It happens every time. So there is no, you can include members, but it's only up to 100. And obviously currently with real-time segments, once they're in a journey, you can't touch them. So not ideal. The main thing that I've heard a lot of people doing, and the advice we've given is to use a marketing list and reference the segment references the marketing list.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah.
So it's a bit of a step back, but the marketing list is part of the core Dataverse table set, so it's never going to go away. It's solid, it's stable. Yeah, go for it. Go for your life.
The other possible thing, and it really depends on exactly what your requirements are, Priya, but you can, and it's not really that visible, but when you've built out your segment, if you've done it based on filtering with different fields and everything, over on the right hand side in the settings area, I think it is, there's an option that you can basically create a snapshot. So it's essentially saying, right, I'm going to build it, I'm going to check and see how many members that it's going to bring back. I can do all of that, but then you can create a timestamp version of it so that it will keep everybody in it at that point in time. So it's not quite, we don't quite have static segments, but those should give you a variety of options. So either the marketing list angle, like Amy said, or doing a time stamp snapshot of it. But yeah, I don't see them at this point saying, oh, now we'll add static, because they've got these other options.
Sounds good. All right,
okay.
I'll try that. Thank you.
No problem. You're welcome. Kaya?
1 second, I need to re-enable your microphone. Stand by. I've been actually.
I think I can.
Oh, look, there we go. Magic.
Hi again. So I would like to know if you have made any experience with this issue. We need to be able to work with bulk email field because of an interface, and have set up or created rules to transport content in both ways. Do you have such experience, or do you know that?
Yeah, but that was when people were first starting to use real-time. So it was like dipping their toe in it, but they still wanted to make sure that anyone that had opted in or opted out of a purpose or topic, that it would update that field accordingly. Now, I'm pretty sure, and I'll have to do what Amy was doing and try and Google and find it. Pretty sure in one of the documentation links from Microsoft, it clearly says if you want to carry on and have that field update, it is your responsibility to do that. In other words, it's not going to be doing it out of the box at all. So you would have to do exactly what you've done.
Yeah, sure. Just to know if there is about the rules and the dependencies that you would have to respect or consider.
So back in the day when it was all hybrid, I did build some automations to do this for customers as like, hey, we need to kind of work in this hybrid mode and keep stuff up to date. I wouldn't recommend doing it long term because you're putting you're putting your compliance in the hands of automations. And it makes me a little bit nervous, I guess. I'd probably go back to saying, like, what's the actual, like, why do you have to have that field? Like, what's the need? Is it just because that's what we've always done?
Well, it's because we haven't rolled out all over the whole company. Well, it's a big organization, and we are working or depending on this interface that is working with the consent on contact level, which is would imply that we would change that completely for the whole company, that logic.
I mean, that's part of the change management moving to real-time marketing, right?
But that will take a lot of time because they're not quite ready to onboard on CRM, on Dynamics.
Yeah. So obviously there's a little indicator that says check contact consent or not. So you can leave that turned on for now and leave the field there. But I wouldn't be building stuff to make that accurate. I would instead be spending the time going, this needs to go away. Here, let me enable you with all the other tools. So adding the communication tab. Maybe you want to build something a little bit more custom. Maybe it's an embedded Canvas app that clearly displays, it rolls up, like this is what I've thought about doing for a few customers. It kind of rolls up all their contact point consent records and says whether the contact's opted in or out. You know, like think outside the box in terms of how can you encourage the behavior towards the new thing rather than building stuff to make the old thing work. I think for as long as you want, though, you can leave that on to check this do not bulk email allow, but bear in mind that it's not in sync with the other stuff. So the scenarios you've got.
As long as Microsoft allow, not as long as.
But now, like, this doesn't seem to be anything about it coming away.
No, but not for as long as you want. I think this, like you said, there needs to be a work towards it.
For the foreseeable future, I think they'll keep it for a long time. I think that's going to be one of the last things they rip out because it's a core field. So yes, eventually they might stop checking it, but I think it's a bloody long way away. I put some money on that. I'm okay with that. I'll put that on the main
I would just worry
thing.
about the feature switch at like some point going away, so there isn't that option.
It's a long way away. Okay. But anyway, you don't want to be using it long term because your consent ends up getting mixed up. So the scenario is, for example, someone opted out in outbound or someone set the do not bulk allow indicator to do not allow, which I hate that indicator anyway. It's reverse logic. It hurts my head. Then this person decides they do want to opt in. They fill in a form on the website, which is a real-time form to opt in, but their contact indicator still says they're opted out. So they can never then get to opt in for your marketing. And then the other one is they unsubscribe using your real-time form. They're technically opted out. The system won't send to them, but they're still showing as opted in according to your indicator. So you end up building all these automations to keep it all in check. It's really easy to fall into a hole of circular references. So your flow that triggers one thing actually triggers a flow again. So to build it without getting yourself stuck in circular automations is horrible.
Well, that's what we're trying to do right now.
It's not good.
But the problem is not only the interface, it's also because we do have a use case building on marketing lists and probably also quick campaign, because the organization is so big, not all the people are marketeers, but they need to do marketing campaigns, and that's the only thing we can give them, the only tool.
So the other thing I was going to say, if the organization's pretty big, the other thing to keep in mind is you've got one field on the contact, but you could, in theory, have multiple compliance profiles, multiple purposes, multiple topics. So at some point it could be, which is the overriding purpose, which is the overriding compliance profile, and the other to determine whether you're going to have that toggled on or off. And then the other thing is just the difference in terms of with outbound, it is on a contact by contact basis, but with real time, if that email address exists on multiple records, it's handled slightly differently. So those, I think like Amey said, in terms of work towards replacing or changing this interface rather than trying to shoehorn that in the other way.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
If they're a big enough company, I'd play the not supported compliance risk cards and say, look,
compliance. Yeah, just say compliance.
Literally like compliance and risk and secure and all the other things. I'd throw that at them and say, you know what, we got to change.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Good luck. So we have time to go back to Priya, who had another question 2 down about trigger-based journeys.
Yes, thank you so much.
No problem.
So in past few days, like I've created a lot of trigger-based journeys, but it really works well when we use triggers like in the middle of the journey so that we can, perform some kind of asynchronous actions in the back end, and it works really nice. But when I use trigger-based journey in like if I'm using the trigger in the beginning of the journey to basically allow the contact to enter, it always works for like if a contact is qualifying the trigger conditions more than once, it's gonna enter the journey more than once. So is there a way for trigger-based journey where we are using the triggers in this beginning to allow contact to just enter once? Because even the settings on the right hand side, like where you kind of limit the entry of contact, doesn't work in this way. In this case, like it always triggers, like allows the contact to come into the journey as many times as they qualify the trigger.
I mean, that's the nature of trigger-based journeys, right? That it's meant to happen more than once. So you'd have to, what trigger are you using as an example?
So let's say if I create, as soon as an order is placed, then I'm doing something with it. So a contact can place multiple orders, right? So it will qualify to enter the journey more than once, but I'm only kind of worried, like looking for specific orders, and I only want to send some email or communication just once to the contact instead every time they place an order. So there are like some other conditions as well. So trigger make more sense than the segment, because segment it's just going to be like huge.
The context of the trigger. I would look at ways that I can stop the trigger firing. So something around, can you do a filter based on the contact's previous orders? And if the contact's previous order was created like after today, or like, maybe like a roll-up field on the contact that says how many orders they've done.
So if they're placing like 3 orders a day, they're at least like it's hitting 3 times a day, right? So it's never stopped. Like I already applied a lot of filters like that to restrict, but every time, like it's the nature, as you mentioned, for trigger-based journey, it's gonna hit it, and there's no way to kind of add exclusions. So like even if we do like a lot of exclusions,
they're not quick enough.
It doesn't work.
So maybe I'm missing something, because
I checked that.
Are you saying that the repeat is not working on your trigger-based journeys?
I don't want the repeat to work. Like I want the contact
you don't want
to
it
just
to work.
I want the contact to just traverse the journey once, even though it hits the trigger like more than once.
Right, but what I'm saying is the repeat journey, there's settings specifically for that you can say repeat immediately, never, or after a day or 2 days. Are you saying that you've used that and it doesn't work and people are still going through? That to me is a bug, because it works when I've done it for customers. So I'm before you try anything else, for me that is a bug, because that's specifically what that setting is for. So somebody, I mean, it says if people trigger this journey again, when can they repeat it? So if you've got that set and you've tried it and it didn't work and it allowed them to go through again and again, for me there's something not quite right there, because that's what that is. That's the issue of it.
The issue is, let's say in this case, trigger initiated because the order was placed. So the trigger was on the order entity, right? But the contacts, they like as soon as they hit the trigger, these settings do not work. I tried all 3 of them because it really doesn't see the contact like the way it sees the segment. In segment, it's already kind of like that is the starting point, like your contacts are the starting point or the leads are the starting point. But in this case, order is the starting point. So it always, the system kind of looks for the orders placed. If the contact is placed 3 times, it didn't work.
Order is a binding ID rather than the contact itself.
Correct. Yeah.
Got
so
it.
it pays
That's why it's not
to
unique.
me, I think that's still a bug because it's about the person going through the journey. The order doesn't go through the journey. The person does. So we can say, like, what?
I worked it out. You have to create a custom trigger, but your binding ID should be the contact ID. So you do exactly the same thing as what the out-the-box trigger does, but if it is about the binding ID, it currently uses the order. So you can pass in the order as an entity reference, but your binding ID should be the contact, and then the contact becomes the thing that can't enter the journey more than once.
So we should return a contact as a result of the custom trigger instead. Like we can't use like I feel like if you're
but
not
the trigger
using custom,
has to have an audience type.
But you define the binding ID, and I reckon that's what it's using, the binding ID rather than the audience.
Yeah, but it's about the person that is going into the journey, and that person is the audience member. And that specific, what I'm saying is, if it's not working for you, that is a bug.
Woohoo, I found one. Okay.
It's not a good thing. You don't want those things.
You don't want a bug. But so for me, I think it's a bug. Like, I don't think it's like, oh, well, because we're passing through the audience member, and that's either a contact, a lead, or customer insights profile.
Even if I passed that, it didn't work. Yeah, I tried that.
Okay.
So I ended up creating a segment out of it, and then used So, but instead, like, because it has like more conditions, so I had to put all those conditions back in the segment. But with triggers, it was easy because you can just trigger it as soon as the order is placed.
Branch.
And branch. But it didn't work. Like I had to really, like, people were getting multiple emails. I really had to stop in the middle. But that's like, I was like, oh, that's crazy. And it's kind of mentioned on the Microsoft pages as well. Like I was reading, like, it is only possible, I think it's in the brackets very much written somewhere in the feature switches, that the email deduplication, the overall email deduplication that we apply, that doesn't apply on the trigger. Like it only applies on the segment-based journeys.
Correct, yes.
So I was like, okay, so even the overall setting of not sending more than one same email to the contact more than once doesn't work on trigger based.
Yes, which makes sense because the nature of triggers.
Yes.
But if you set never, in theory it shouldn't. I would be curious though that if you tried what I suggested, whether that works, because that says to me that it is a bug, but then at least you've got a way to work around it using a trigger.
Okay, I'll try that. Thanks, Amy.
No worries.
Thanks, Megan.
No problem. You're welcome. So amazingly, we have come to the last question. If there are no more questions, we are doing 2 more sessions next Wednesday. Those will be the last ones for a while, maybe for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We're not quite sure yet, but we will let you know once we've got more. We'll go ahead and promote them on social media and in the Dynamics Marketing Weekly newsletter. Anything else from you, Amy?
I think so. I
think we got off quite lightly on this one.
I know. I feel like I scared everyone away or bored them to death. One of the two.
Hopefully it was helpful for people.
No, we'll do another one next week. And then, a slight break for holidays and life. And then if it's useful, we'll come back.
Thanks, guys. Take care.